So, hi, Marissa. It's great to have you with us on the show today.
Hi, Melita. Thanks for having me.
Now, I'm really excited because you are a mindset and body coach for performers and creatives. And so I'm really fascinated to understand how we can change our perception of ourselves and our position in the market or as business owners by enhancing our creativity and performance and how we think and feel about ourselves and show up. So I think we're going to have just such an interesting discussion digging into all of that. But before we do, I'd love to know, how did you start in this area?
How did I start? Okay, well, I have always had a job. So I've had lots of jobs. From a teenager, it was things like babysitting. Then I worked in a cinema. Then I went into care work, customer service. So I've always had work going, always had money coming in from somewhere. My last real job that I had was working in a company for 11 years. I started off in the customer service department and then ended up in the sales department. But alongside my 9 to 5, I'd always been a creative and I loved movement. So I would do things like I was a performer. I was a fitness instructor. I was running my own creative projects outside of my work. And there was a point where I got to thinking about how I was just tired of cramming all of my passion projects into my evenings and weekends. So I'd have my 9 to 5. It was a bit like, like having an alter ego. So like Clark Kent's during the day. And then in the evenings and the weekends, I was living my best life, like Superman. And I just wanted more of the Superman or Superwoman element. I wanted to enjoy my days more. And I wanted to do something that I felt passionate about and dedicate the hours that I was awake to my passion as opposed to working for someone else. So in that last role that I had, I managed to save enough money to have 2 years grace period. So I'd have 2 years to work out what I was going to do and build my own business. And I decided to take the leap of faith and start off on my entrepreneurial journey. So that led me to set up a social enterprise called Centre Myself, which was all about increasing confidence in young people, and also pursue my qualifications in becoming a coach, which is something that appeared on the horizon and then I ran towards it.
I love that. And when you did that and you took the courage and you took the leap, and I love that you had prepared for that. People will quite often ask, at what point do I leave my career and jump into my business? So having that cushion is really important. And the other way is to straddle the two for a while and build your business up to a position where you can feel confident that when you move into that full time, it's going to give you the funds that you need to live. But I love that you just thought, well, hang on a minute. I've got my work life and then my passions, and it's the balance is out of sync here. It needs to be the other way around. How has it felt moving into your passions full time?
At first, it was a case of, am I allowed to do this? Like, I'm allowed to enjoy my days? But the more I sort of gave myself permission to do that, everything felt like it was in alignment. It didn't feel as difficult. There were challenges, but because I was passionate about it, I felt more excited to be doing those things. And it was a case of I now had more freedom and more choice, and there was so much more potential. And so it was really exciting. It felt so freeing to be able to do that. And to sort of go back to what you said about the being ready and making that bridge. So security is one of my core values. I need to feel safe. That's why I've always had a job in the background up until that point. And so for me, it's a case of having to have stuff in place to make sure that I felt safe enough to explore that freedom that this new life was creating, so that I wouldn't panic buy into another job just because I'd sort of get scared of the self-employed journey and think, oh my God, I need to pay the bills, and then end up in another job that I didn't enjoy. So I think it was really a case for me of feeling like I had that safety net so that I could take a leap of faith, but a more measured one. And I appreciate that not everyone works like that. Some people, they need to completely burn their bridges so that they're forging ahead. But for me, I needed to have that safety net in place for me to feel like I could explore that new world I was heading into.
I want to come back to this idea that you gave yourself permission to really enjoy your work, because we do have this sense, don't we, that work has to be hard, it has to be difficult, we can't enjoy it. And I don't know where this has come from, but I hear it a lot in my clients. It's like, well, if I do this, it feels too easy. It doesn't feel hard enough. So I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. It's like, well, if you're enjoying it and it's getting results, then it's absolutely the right thing. And you should definitely do more of that. Was it difficult? Well, what was your thought process behind saying, yeah, I can do this. I do belong here and I do have permission to have fun?
It took a long time to shift them. I think it was a mindset piece. So I came from a family where you have to work hard. You have to work hard to bring the money in. And when the money comes in, it's only to pay the bills. There was never enough. There was never a freedom with the money that was available. And so you graft, you pay your bills, and then you keep working hard. And so for me to sort of have this epiphany, if you like, of, oh no, it can be easy. I can have space in my calendar. I can have days off in the week. I can do things that I enjoy. It was a challenge for me. It was a challenge to accept. And there was a lot of guilt as well, because a lot of the people around me were still doing the 9 to 5. They were struggling. And so it really was a case of me having to spend a lot of time reflecting and reconciling with myself that I'm doing work that I enjoy. By doing this, I'm enabling other people to pursue their dreams and feel confident in doing that. I'm leading by example. And you know what? We're all here having a human experience. Why does it have to be difficult all the time? Why can't we embrace ease? It's an ongoing thing. Like you think you've reached that layer of, yeah, I'm completely cool with it. But every so often you get the thought of, oh, I'm having too much fun, or it can't be this easy to do this, or I can't be earning money I'm getting paid to do this. You know, those little thoughts do come in, but it is a case of just reflecting and also remembering why you're doing what you're doing.
I think that's so important. Having that higher vision of how you want to change the world, why the world's better for the work you're doing. And if you're doing work that you love and you're passionate about and you have that energy and enthusiasm for, then absolutely you're going to have a better impact on the world and the people in it and around you than if you're just selling your time for money and hating what you do. That's never going to drive anything positive. So I really like that you highlighted that. And the other thing that you mentioned there, which I thought was really interesting, and again, I see it with some of my clients, is this idea of survivor guilt, that I made this leap and it's working for me and I'm enjoying it. And then other people are still stuck and they're missing out so much. And that can trigger these feelings of guilt as well, which we just need to recognize that it's okay. And as you say, go back to your why, go back to your vision, go back to your values, and just keep those present all the time. Did you have a way of doing that? Did you have a formal vision board, or was it something that was more visualization in your mind?
There was a couple of things I did to support this vision. I suppose I've always had a coach. I've always had some sort of support in that way to speak these thoughts out and get some reflection back on, actually, you know, it's okay. You're allowed to enjoy what you do. Listening to inspirational, motivational speakers, podcasts, that sort of thing. In terms of keeping connected with my higher vision, I had vision boards for a little while, but most recently I set up something called a mind movie, which is basically slides and images of the life that I want to create for myself and the impact that I want to create for the world. So for me, it's all about legacy. What am I leaving behind? What is the positive impact I want to create? And so on those days when I'm feeling a little wobbly, I can just refer back to that and remember why I'm doing it and what the higher reason is. And once you've got that, it's like having the guiding star, something that you can head towards and know that that's your focus point.
And again, I think that's something that for a lot of people, it feels too simple almost. Oh, it can't be that easy just to go and remind myself with a bunch of pictures and quotes and words. But I think if those pictures and words really trigger something within you and remind you and keep you back on track, then it really can be that simple.
Yeah, and that's the key thing, I think, what you said there about triggering that feeling. You have to have emotion behind what you're doing. It's all very well having an affirmation that you say out loud or having an image, but if that doesn't mean anything to you, if it doesn't connect with you or make you feel something in your body, then you're not necessarily going to pursue it. And that's kind of why I decided to combine mindset and body in the coaching that I do, because people tend to separate them out. But when you combine them, you have this element of taking a holistic approach to your life and what you want to achieve and enjoying the emotion and the feelings that come along with that.
Yeah, it is true. And when you say that, I was just thinking about it. It's like, yeah, even as a mindset coach, I do tend to think about my mind and body, and I know better, but I do think of them like as separate. Is there a way that we can bring those together and have them start working for ourselves?
There's a number of different things you can do, I think, and I was guilty of this as well. I used to think of like my brain on a stick. You just drag your body along for the ride, you just do whatever. But when I was performing, when I was dancing, I felt most connected. So I think there's something around movement, integrated mindful movement. It doesn't have to be dancing. It could just be going for a walk. It could be taking a moment to stop and pause and notice sensation in your body. We spend so much time up in our heads, but if we can bring our focus down into what's happening in our body in the current moment, then we can start to form that connection and remind ourselves of that connection that's always there, but we sometimes have a tendency to ignore because it's easy to get caught up in those thoughts that are cycling around in your head.
Yeah. And I guess our intuition is a gut feeling, isn't it?
Hmm.
It comes from the body. And this is where we store all of our wisdom from our experiences, but also those around us and that have come before us. So, yeah, I can see how getting centered, not just in your mind, but also in your body, can really be a powerful combination.
Yeah, and a lot of the teachings that I've read and the study that I've done is around that holistic approach. So the two informing each other. If you're able to create this sensation or notice sensation within your body, that starts to form a feedback loop within your mind. And they all start to work together. And a lot of my work is around drawing people's attention to that and harnessing that so that they're not doing two separate things. Like our minds can tell us lies. Our minds can show us things that aren't true. And so by centering ourselves, we can just take a moment to pause and reflect and really notice what's happening in this current moment and in the current experience that we're having.
Yeah. So you help performers and creatives with this. Now, I would have thought that this would have been something that's quite natural to performers. So where does that disconnect and how can you help them?
So that's really interesting. In terms of a performer, when you are on stage, you can embody all of these things. My work is around what happens when you're not on a stage. What happens when you're not in front of an audience? So I know that when I was dancing, I'd be like on stage, loving it, it's great. And then when I come off and I'd be going into a cycle of self-criticism, judgment, looking for validation, wondering if the audience had enjoyed it, seeking feedback from other, well, not feedback, I wanted praise. I didn't want to hear anything bad. So I was constantly sending my sense of value and my sense of self-worth outside of me. So my work with performers and creatives is about bringing that focus inwards, harnessing those feelings you get on stage or in front of a camera and using them in your day-to-day life. So who are you when you're not performing? And how are you treating that person when you're not performing? What sort of relationship do you have with them? It's very easy to think, oh, performers are so confident, they've got life sorted. But a lot of us are very insecure. And the reason we're performing is because we're seeking validation outside of ourselves. And we need people to tell us that we're doing well or that we're a good person. So it's really about bringing that focus inwards, as I said before, and just connecting with that inherent self-worth that you have, irrespective of whether or not you get a standing ovation, or whether or not you get that part, or if you get chosen to be at the front of the chorus line.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot within that anyone can learn, particularly as business owners, because we're doing all of the activities and sometimes we can feel that if we're not getting the results that we expect instantly or to the level we want, then we start to have this self-doubt. And I like that you mentioned there that when you're on stage, that's not the moment that you have these issues, because you don't have fear in the moment. When you're in action, you're not frightened because you're doing it already. It's those moments where you're not in action that all of these fears and doubts can creep in. So having tools to manage that, and as you say, look within, because that's where all the answers really are, rather than without, for the recognition and self-worth is so important. And I think for not just performers, but anyone doing anything in life, but particularly for business owners where you are on your own for a lot of the time, the buck stops with you. You have to perform in a sense in your business, and if you're not getting that recognition, then it can be difficult. But I think, well, that's part of the power, as you mentioned earlier, of working with a coach, because even as a coach, it's hard to do this for yourself. You need that external reflection to help you reflect inward and stop searching outwards as well.
Absolutely.
So when it comes to creatives, and I know a lot of people that listen to the show have creative businesses, how is that different to performers? Is there a difference, or do they have the same sort of challenges?
I think they're inherently the same. And I also think entrepreneurs also have a creative element. I do work a lot with young entrepreneurs because it's all of those things are about creation. They're about bringing in something to life, bringing a vision to life, and calling on board creative skills, perhaps even improvisational skills, to make those things happen. And so for me, it's a case of, I said performers and creatives to open it out so people aren't just like, well, you just work with people on the stage. But that creative element is actually a theme that runs along all of us. We all have a creative bone in our body, a creative spark, a creative soul. It's just how we decide to share that with the world that may be different between certain individuals.
That's interesting, isn't it? I like your description there that entrepreneurs are very creative because they make a vision come to life. I speak with a lot of people, particularly consultants, who are perhaps specialists in legal or risk or some kind of operational factor. They don't see themselves as creative at all. But in fact, they are hugely creative because they're all about solving problems for their clients and finding new and different ways of doing things. And to me, that's creativity.
Absolutely. And I think recent times have shown us that even in the corporate sector, because unexpected things can happen, you need to get creative about how you're running your business. You need to think about things differently. You need to encourage new ways of thinking about things and spark that creative element so that you can bring a new skill set, approach something differently, do something differently, and change it from the way that it used to be. And to do that, you need to open up that creative element, or at least connect with it in some way.
Yeah, exactly. And creativity has so many different guises. We tend to think of it as being just for artists, but it's not. It comes into everything.
Absolutely.
So you help performers when they're off stage. Do you have any tips you can share with the listeners of the show on how they can feel more comfortable on stage? Because a lot of people, you're thrust into social media and you're even just putting a post out there, even if it's not a video, it feels like a performance somehow. Do you have any advice that you can share on how people can feel a bit more confident stepping up and showing up?
Well, there's that element of rehearsal, practice. If you're able to prepare for a certain situation where you're going to be in front of other people, have a practice, give it a go. Key thing for me is to imagine the best outcome. I think a lot of the anxious thoughts, the fear can be generated around, what if this goes wrong? That's going to go wrong. That's going to go wrong. What if the alternative is true? What if it goes so well? What if you get a resounding positive feedback? What if you're actually really pleased with yourself at the end? So there's a lot around visioning, like imagining how you would feel if it went well. And then that sort of taps into the body at work and the embodiment piece that I do with a lot of my clients, which is around harnessing that feeling. So we can use things like anchoring, like reminding yourself of the feeling of success or the feeling of strong. And so you can think back to a time when you felt brave, strong, confident, or imagine what it'd feel like to be brave, strong, and confident. And then just really notice how you feel that in your body. Because we're a species that learns from doing things practically. We store information in our bodies. So again, if we're able to shift out of the negative mindset and then the cycling thoughts, move into our body and this feeling of confidence, we can tap into that whenever we need it and call upon that when we're about to go on stage or speak on a camera or have a conversation one-to-one with some people. Even that can feel like quite a stretch for a lot of people, but just tapping into that feeling of confidence, whatever your intention is for that interaction, remember that intention and try and feel it in your body.
I think that's just such an interesting way of looking at it, because very often when you have your own business, you tend to think you're doing lots of things that you've never done before. But if you can take a bit of a step back and think, well, what are the emotions that I need here? What's the feeling I need here? And you've definitely done that before. Or what was a time when you have stepped out of your comfort zone and it worked brilliantly? It doesn't need to be a direct comparison, one experience with another. It can be different feelings that we can bring into these new experiences to give us that little bit of extra courage. And you need the courage first and the confidence follows. So if you feel you don't have that confidence, then that's okay. It's normal not to have it. You just need that courage and sometimes a deep breath.
Yeah. And the other thing I heard someone say was around, it's again connecting back to that vision. So remember, if you're going out to speak in front of a group of people, remember it's not actually about you. It's about the service, the value that you want to bring. You're going out with the intention of helping people, sharing your knowledge, answering a few questions. So if you shift that focus, you can move out of that mindset of, oh my God, everyone's looking at me, I'm going to mess up. They're going to be thinking about how rubbish I am, blah, blah, blah. Think about the higher vision. And if you can tap into that, you will notice that the reframing happens in your brain and you start to connect with the experience in a different way.
Yeah, I remember when I worked in corporate and I used to do communication coaching for leaders within this large organization. And they were all so paranoid and like, oh, people are looking to me for this, that, and the other. I was like, they're not even looking at you. They're all so tied up in what they've got going on. It isn't, as you say, it's not about you. They're looking to you to get what they need. Your audience is very selfish. They're not really looking at you, but more how you can help them with your message. So if you turn that around, and as an introvert, I really hated standing up and doing public speaking or networking or anything like that until I made that realization and turned it around. So what have I got to offer this person and how can I make it about them? And then it made it so much easier to show up. And in the early days of your business, or if you're starting out on social media for the first time, no one is watching anyway. You don't have an audience yet. So it doesn't matter if you mess up. And actually, I think if you do mess up, it really draws people to you because they start to feel, oh, they're just like me. If you're too perfect, then it almost builds a wall between you and them. So get creative and have fun.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. People, they like to see humans in front of them. They don't want to see a robot. So if you do make a mistake, so what? So what? Play around with it. Was it actually a mistake? Is there a way that you can use that? What are you going to learn from that situation? All of these things are available to us as positive experiences if we can frame them in that way and just use every experience to our advantage.
And what I love about everything you're saying here, well, with the exception perhaps of getting a coach, is that everything you've told us is what we already have. There's nothing stopping us just after listening to this episode, going and tapping back into our vision and starting to think slightly differently about the work we're doing. It's all really instant. And I love that.
Yeah, and reflecting on previous experiences. So even things where you think it went wrong, so I failed miserably there. Can you revisit that and think about what you learned from it and what you're going to take forward from it? It happened long ago enough that you're actually laughing about it now. Just think like in a few months, I'm going to be laughing about this. This is actually hilarious. So I think it's a case of how you view things and being really conscious of how you choose to view those things and how you want to store that information within you.
Oh, so much of what you just said, which is like really powerful. As you say, we can choose. We can't choose what happens to us, but we can certainly choose how we react to that, how we allow it to affect our mood, our behaviors, what happens next. We have a lot more choice in this world than we sometimes think we have. And the other thing you mentioned where it was about revisiting your failures. And I remember when I very first started doing any kind of mindset work, it was probably about 15 years ago now. And I was watching this guy and he said, we all replay some of these events that have happened in the past that we've beat ourselves up over. Can you think of one of these? And I was like, oh yeah, there's one that happened when I think I must have been maybe 14. And I just did something really stupid without thinking. And I was like, oh my God, that was just ridiculous. And it really embarrassed a friend of mine. So I felt so bad about that. That strong emotion really stayed with me throughout life. And I have spoken to this friend since, and she doesn't even remember it. And I was dragging it along with me and using that to kind of belittle myself in all these different situations. And he said, is there a lesson you need to learn there? Take that lesson and just let it go. And it's like, really? I can do that. So is there a lesson? It's like, oh yeah, just think a little bit more before you act, which is a lesson that I had learned anyway. And then I let it go. And it was that easy. We tend to think as failures as being, this is now telling me who I am. I am no good. It's confirming all of this, but it's not. It's just giving you information that you can learn to grow and achieve that success easier next time, or do things a little bit differently, or learn what we're good at or we like. And so it's just really great information. So I love that advice of just going back to past failures and using that as a stepping stone to our future successes.
And I love what Jim Quick says. He says, there's no failure, there's only feedback. So the idea that any experience that you have, there is information that can be drawn from that. And also, if you think about the concept of failure, it's a case of you haven't met an expectation that you had at the beginning. The outcome has been different. So that's something that I learned actually on my entrepreneurial journey, the fact that I need to let go of the outcome. I can be doing all of this work headed in this direction, and something will come along from the side that I didn't expect that is actually maybe more interesting, more exciting, or takes me on a different route, but still to the same destination. So it's really being very open to the experiences and not holding on too tightly to the outcome of something.
Yeah, Susan Jeffers mentioned something similar, that there is no such thing as a wrong decision, because if you have that clear vision, coming back to your mind movie idea and having that clear connection with your why, then any decision you make, if it's taking you in that direction, it's not wrong. So it might not pan out as you expect, but you're going to learn on the way and become the kind of person that can achieve that. Or maybe you choose the right decision and it works perfectly brilliant, but either way, you do not fail. So yeah, I love that you've highlighted that.
I think we have a tendency to overcomplicate things as well. So what I teach a lot of my young entrepreneurs is, once you've got your vision, if you have a choice to make, is this going to get me closer to my vision, or is this in alignment with my vision? If it's not, then you don't do it. Just keep it really, really simple. And you don't know what you're going to discover along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have your vision and you're connected with your inner wisdom and you have that kind of faith in yourself, regardless, then you can't go far wrong, can you?
Absolutely.
So, Marissa, you have shared just really so much insight and wisdom. I've been making notes on the side and I can't even read them now because I've been writing notes on top of notes. There's so many golden nuggets. But is there anything else that you haven't mentioned yet, or anything you'd like to highlight that you would really like to leave the audience with today?
I really just want people to take care of themselves. I think as performers, creatives, entrepreneurs, any humans actually, we have a tendency to forget ourselves, especially if we're working towards a higher vision, if we have a goal that we're working towards. We feel like we constantly need to give outside of ourselves, and we have a tendency to self-sacrifice, to drain our energy, to deplete our resources. So I just really want to encourage people to remember that it's okay to look after yourself. And if you want to keep showing up in the way that you want to in the world, it's essential to take care of yourself. And that may look or feel like selfishness initially, but you will need to do that if you want to get to where you're going in a healthy way.
So powerful a note to end on. And the longer I do this work around business coaching and supporting entrepreneurs in their journey, the more I see the link between self-love and self-care and self-respect and success. If you don't look after yourself and believe you're worth taken care of, then you're not going to get to the levels of success that you want. It's so important. And regular listeners of the show will know that was why I moved to business coaching in the first place, because my consultancy, I burned out of that because I wasn't factoring myself in my business at all. It was all focused on my family, on my clients. I left nothing for me. And it really is a recipe for overwhelm, burnout, disaster, but that self-care is so important. So I really love that you said it's not just okay, it's essential. If you want to build a business, if you want to build a sustainable life around that business as well, it really is essential. We like to call it being self-full, not selfish.
I love that. I'm taking that. That's my note for today.
Marissa, thank you so much for joining us today. And now, if anyone out there would like to know a bit more about your work around mind and body coaching, particularly for a performer or creative, it's worth going and checking her out. But where can they find you?
Probably best to find me on my website. So that's marissamccallum.com, or I play around on Instagram and LinkedIn as well. Again, Marissa McCallam. Hopefully, Melissa will put my spelling of my name in the notes so you'll be able to find me.
Yeah, it's Mac without an A and McCallum with an AM at the end. All A's. No A, then all A's.
Two of each letter in my surname, marissamccallum.com. But give me a Google, you'll probably come across me anyway.
Great. And I'll put your links in the show notes below anyway.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Marissa, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.